Hello and welcome to another episode of FUTStock, the show where we discuss all things FIFA Ultimate Team. I'm your host, Metz, and with me I have a very special guest this week, my good friend and colleague James. Say hello, James.
Hey Matt, how you doing?
Glad to have you on board. Now, for those of you wondering where Matt Aguilera is, he's on holiday at the moment, but we might be hearing from him a little later on. But James has very kindly offered to step in and tell us a little bit about his Ultimate Team know-how. Now, James, we were introduced by a mutual friend probably just about a year or so ago, right, when you started working for the same company as me. And interestingly, he introduced us because he knew that I did the FUT podcast at the time, and he knew that you were a big video gamer and FIFA player. So it's like, you two play FIFA, you two should talk, and we got on mightily well. So tell us a little bit about your experience with FIFA and Ultimate Team as a whole.
I've been playing it since day one, so I'm a FUT founder. I suppose FIFA's always been the staple of my gaming kind of experience. It's always been the game that everything else fits around. So, it's something that I kind of look for every year, play to death, invest too much time. These days, probably invest too much money. I think, we both live on the Isle of Man, so last winter we had kind of 3.5 months of solid rain. It's the best excuse to stay in, play FIFA Ultimate Team every night and rip open far too many packs. So that's kind of my background in FIFA, is just being a player. And I don't mean that in a kind of interesting way. I absolutely mean that in a kind of, I play it for fun. I get my backside handed to me on a regular basis. I'm by no ways or means a great FIFA player, but I play it because I love it and I'm passionate about playing it. So, it's always been the game that whenever I'm bored on anything else, I'll end up back at FIFA. So it's always there, I suppose.
Yep, I think that sounds about right for the pair of us. Very similar sort of level of experience with the game there, so that's good. So, just sort of thinking out loud here. We've been playing FIFA and in particular Ultimate Team for years, but you have a unique insight into the type of stuff that we talk about on the show because you've actually worked in the video game industry. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky. So I started off life working for an advertising agency, working on projectors, enterprise portals, really boring tech stuff. And to be honest, I just blagged my way into the games industry. I was really, really lucky. It was an industry that was growing, and I managed to take the skills I had and pretend they were in some way, shape or form relevant to games. So I ended up working for IDOS, based in Wimbledon for about 4 years, and moved over to Ubisoft, worked there for a number of years. Then back to IDOS, which by that time had turned into Square Enix, then back to Ubisoft, and then ended up out in Sweden working for a company called Massive. So, and then, as you know, ended up working with you. So it's been a really interesting career thus far, working both in kind of the execution and marketing side and embedded with development teams in the studio. So, sweating blood, tears, working all hours to get the games out that we love to play and we love to talk about. And so it's been one of those lucky happenstances where you can turn something you're incredibly passionate about into a job, which doesn't happen every day. So I feel very privileged. Very privileged.
We're both pretty lucky in that regard, which is cool. So when people like us are sort of lambasting EA and taking a poke at certain things, do you kind of empathise with them a little bit due to your level of experience in the industry?
I mean, you have to a certain extent. I mean, EA is an annual release, and that puts so much pressure on the development team. You have a set date, you have a certain amount of days to deliver it. It's not like working on something like Assassins where you can slip a year, or Call of Duty where there's 2 or 3 teams going at it at a time. They really have to pick and choose their battles, what they can improve, what they can kind of grow, what they can focus on. So it does give you an insight into when people are giving EA a hard time for not loving the community or not loving the game. I can absolutely say that's not the case. They're out there trying to do their best and deliver something that you're going to enjoy as much as they do. There's huge amounts of pride in the people who work in the games industry. I mean, a lot of them are incredibly smart, could be doing many other things to make a lot more money. And they're there because they're passionate about it, you know, as passionate as the people who are playing the game. I don't think I've ever worked in an industry where people just love what they do so much and will go the extra mile to try and make things, you know, better in any way, shape or form that they can. It's not something you do for the money. You do it for free t-shirts, a couple of free games, and a lot of love. So, yeah, we're very lucky to do what we do, or I was very lucky to get to do what I did and work with the people I have worked with. But yeah, certainly when things go wrong, it's not for the lack of trying or the lack of passion or the lack of desire to give you a great experience. It's just because sometimes shit happens, and it's terrible to see. But anyone who's worked on a big game knows that at some point, you know, something will go wrong, because they're just beasts these days. I mean, you go back to where I started gaming, you know, playing around on the BBC, you know, playing games that are the size of an image today, and you know, only a certain amount could go wrong, but even then things went wrong. But the complexity that you're dealing with now in terms of production, in terms of programming, is huge. So yeah, I do feel for them sometimes, because it's definitely not something where they're sitting there going, let's just do the minimum we can do. Every time you start off on a game, it's what's the best experience we can deliver for the people who are going to pay and play it. It's, you know, it's a thing of passion. And definitely a thing of pride. There's not a lot of people in the games industry who don't have a slightly obsessive nature, because they want to do the best they possibly can.
Oh, fair enough. So next time things are looking a little bit messy, we'll try our best to cut you a little bit of slack, just a tiny bit though.
Tiny bit of slack. Yeah, they love working on that game as much as we love playing it, and to be honest, you complaining about it sometimes. And to be fair, I complain as much as the next guy. You know, these days I think it's probably as much down to my skill level deteriorating as much as the quality of the game. But yeah, they're not there doing it just for the cash. The people who are working on the ground are doing it for love. They really are. And they take a lot of heart and a lot of... I suppose, you know, when things go wrong, they feel it. They feel it as much as you guys do. And it maybe they can't talk about it as much. They can't reach out and talk to you about it, but they're there trying to resolve stuff as much in the best way possible to get the best experience to the people playing the game.
Fair enough. I think it's important for us to know that there are fanatics actually working on the game, and they'll feel the pain of any disappointment just as much as we do. So that's always good to hear. So this is our first sort of main show of the new season, and we've got quite a lot to talk about. So just to let you know about what's going to be in today's show, we're going to hand it over to our roaming reporter, live on location from Milan, Italy. Let's take a look at what's coming up on the show.
Campionato di calcio italiano. Another edition of FUTStock, filmed on location in Milan, Italy, for a special edition of Gazzetta Football Mattia. So, PES 17 demos here, the FIFA 17 demos here. I haven't played it, but I am 10 minutes away from Milan Airport, so I can get home and play right now. What's better, and are we just going to buy FIFA 17? Because it's got Ultimate Team after all. All this and more coming up on the show, dedicated to all things FIFA, Ultimate Team, and a very special guest this week, because I'm in Milan after all.
We'll talk about the demo. Have you had a chance to play the demo?
Yeah, absolutely. So I played the beta first. Loved playing that online. But yeah, the demo, I've played a fair few games now, and to be honest, I'm really enjoying it thus far. Don't know about you.
Well, I didn't get an invite to the beta this year, which I'm a bit disappointed about, but I have put a few hours in on the demo, and my initial responses is actually very good. To be honest, there hasn't been too many times where I've actually played a demo and I've been pretty disappointed in what I was actually experiencing. The trouble for me is I don't enjoy playing against the CPU. I only typically play online, so I'm never going to play the game as I experience it once the full game comes out. So I'm never getting an entirely accurate representation of the type of game I like to play. But initial reactions to the demo, all really positive. Shooting seems pretty tight. I mean, they've adjusted how you're doing long shots in particular, but not so much that it feels completely alien to a FIFA 16 player. And passing and movement seems really good. How the AI moves the players for you to create passing opportunities seems pretty spot on. Passing is nice. All the same skill moves are there. So if you're familiar with those, you've got a repertoire, you can jump straight into FIFA 17 and do fairly well. Is there anything in particular that sort of stands out for you, James, or in a good or a bad way?
Definitely the movement, the off-the-ball movement by the players. It feels so pronounced in comparison to previous FIFAs, and I'm hoping that will come through in the head-to-head games online as well. As you say, it's very hard to judge a game that I also predominantly play online for better or worse, based on a demo playing against AI. All of the core stuff feels really slick, from the passing, the shooting. But yeah, the standout thing for me is the off-the-ball movement. It really feels like players are taking their real-world characteristics into FIFA. So I was playing with Man City earlier, and Aguero's movement, playing off the defender, holding that line, waiting for that through ball, just feels really well measured, really well weighted. I've thoroughly enjoyed it so far. I'm struggling to find a lot to complain about this year, and I'm hoping that carries through into the final game, which hopefully I'll be playing sooner rather than later. Although I have unfortunately booked a holiday for launch date, which is just a massive schoolboy error. Ooh. So not only am I away for the EA access period, I'm away for launch. So I'll be there, playing on my web app.
Yeah, that's what I do when I go on vacation. I drive, and this is crazy. I'm doing trading on the web app when I'm like sunbathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
I need to get my priorities right there a little bit. But it's funny you mentioned web app, because just as we've started recording, the web app has apparently gone live for FIFA 17, which is great, although there are a couple of minor issues. Some people can't log in. But I'm sure that'll get sorted out fairly quickly. So it's going to be difficult for me to get any work done the rest of the week now. I know the web apps.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy to be at home, not working this week. And I was frantically refreshing the page for the web app before I came on to chat to you. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that and starting to work out who my team's going to be this year, what I'm going to build it around, and what direction I'm going to go. I always say I'm not going to end up with a hybrid BPL Arsenal team with a few Man City players thrown in, but Man City is such a beast of a unit this year. I mean, just playing them in the demo, they've got a bit of everything, and I really enjoyed that.
They're always pretty OP, Man City, for the last several seasons. They've got, like you say, a little bit of everything. They've got the powerhouse, some quick midfielders like Fernandinho and Yaya, the deadly strikers, good quick wingers, pacey centre-backs. So they are the archetypal ultimate team, unfortunately.
They are indeed. And, Mangala's been a bit of a default last season for me. When I couldn't find a decent centre-back, I just stuck him in. His beastly pace just kept me in a few games. So he'll probably be getting dropped in this year as well, as I start building a team early doors.
So is there any players in particular from the demo or the beta that you've played that really stick out? Well, that player's way better than they should be, or that one really suits the way I play?
I kept on subbing in Kalichi and Nacho to Man City. I've been playing Man City predominantly in the demo, bit of them, bit of PSG, and Cavani's been playing like Cavani, which is nice. He's been skying the ball all over the place, but Kalichi and Nacho has just been a beast. So when Aguero's tiring second half, stick him on up front, and he definitely feels better than the sum of his stats. So hopefully he'll get an upgrade as the season goes on. I don't think you can really argue with his scoring record at the moment in terms of time on the pitch. So yeah, he's been the standout. But to be honest with you, it's what I said, pretty much every player has felt like they're representing their real world skills in the game. So, silky dribbling, Gundogan, who I can't pronounce his name. I butcher that every time, but yeah, lovely, beautiful dribbling. De Bruyne has just been picking out, through balls for fun. Aguero just banging him in. I mean, when I get up to a decent amount of coins, I'll definitely be stretching for Aguero this year. I didn't do last year. I didn't really get on with him last year, but I think this year he looks like a pretty well-rounded player who's, will work with the formation that I'm kind of planning to play. But
okay, that's all good stuff. So just to get an idea of the kind of player that you are, I know from conversations that we've had at work, you like sort of Arsenal BPL hypers and you play legends. But who's been your sort of go-to card, let's say in FIFA 16 in particular? What was the one player that would get into every team?
Pretty much, I'd say every team that I played had Santi Cazorla in it, just because I love the two trigger dribbling, and his turning circle's ridiculous. His ability to play the ball was great, and his long shots were awesome. So yeah, he was pretty much a stalwart. He was a player I kept from probably the first week. He's still in my squad now. I upgraded to the inform. I actually prefer the original, and maybe that's completely safe. And I did feel a change when the chemistries got upgraded. So yeah, I started last season as I start every season, going no informs, simple gold team, just enjoy the players as they are. Totally got swallowed up in that again. So I'm starting out with the same desire this year, just to play a simple game of FIFA and hopefully not get into an arms war. But I do like shiny cards, and I do get drawn in occasionally.
We're all a sucker for it. I mean, I'm probably more guilty than anybody about hoarding informs. I've got no intention of using them, and I lay back on the excuse that they're investments, and most of the time it is. But occasionally I just want a club full of cool looking cards. But it's funny you mentioned Cazorla as one of your favourites, because I hardly ever saw anyone use him, and you can't underestimate the power and the effect of having a long-range shooter who's bow-footed. It's a very valuable trait.
Particularly, I used to play Ozil at Cam, and Ozil's so one-footed. You've got to have someone behind him who can actually push the ball around. So whilst Ozil I played him out of love more than because I actually got great performances out of him. I am a bit of an Arsenal fan, as you know. Cazorla is a kind of great antidote to that. And as long as you're playing kind of a CDM next to him, covering that space, although last year my CDMs, like everyone's, would end up as an auxiliary striker most of the time, something they've definitely sorted out in this year's game. He's just... Yeah, he's a player that I think I've got a little bit of love for, a bit of a man crush, if you want. I love playing with him because he is football, isn't he? He's skillful. He's not based on pure power. It's all about his anticipation. And I suppose the skills and the traits I imbue into him as a player, I kind of take onto the pitch, and I want him to play like the Santi I see playing for Arsenal.
Okay. I think I have the same sort of affinity to Marko Arnautovic, although he's not nearly as useful in Ultimate Team, unfortunately. So I don't get a chance to put him into too many elite squads, but never mind. Right, on to the next port of topic, if you like. And I was having a conversation with some regular Ultimate Team players on Football 365 forum, which is kind of where our podcast was born out of. It was a discussion forum dedicated to Ultimate Team, and they wanted mine and a few other people's help in getting started. And we found that we were repeating the same thing over and over again. So, why don't we just do a podcast? And it was intended to be like a 1 or 2 episode thing to get people started. And we've ended up doing this far too much. So anyway, a few people talking on that forum, querying what the Weekend League was all about. And we don't know the full ins and outs of it yet because the game isn't out. And we only have a smidgen of the information available to sort of digest and piece together into what we think it's going to be. Now, what we do vaguely know about the weekend league is that it requires up to 40 hours of play per week, or at least that's what you're allowed in terms of assessing your ability in the game and where you sort of fit into the ranking mechanism and the cash prize stuff that they offer, which is great. Now, we got into a bit of a set to on forum about what was an acceptable amount of time to play. We sort of worked out that, sorry, it's not 40 hours of play, I beg your pardon, it's 40 matches. I got that entirely wrong. And we worked out that 40 hours over the weekend is about 6 hours per day. Okay. Saturday and Sunday, which I'm not going to lie, it is a lot. But is that an excessive amount of time to demand out of people, given that this is mostly targeted at kids and people do it recreationally who are adults like us or whatever? Now, their thoughts were this was way too much. And someone like me who said, well, I think it's fine. Now, if I'm sitting there watching football weekend, I'll just play FIFA at the same time. It's not a big deal. And I was lambasted, put it that way. I thought I was being a bit of a saddo. But what, in your opinion, is this 40 game requirement, which equates to about 12 hours over the course of a whole weekend, if we base that on an average of about 20 minutes per game? Yeah. Is that an excessive amount of time for you? Do you think that's reasonable?
It does sound like a lot. I mean, I do have a life away from playing FIFA. And
we were on the Isle of Man.
All right, yeah, no, fair enough. On the Isle of Man when it's raining, unlike today, yes, absolutely, that sounds doable. But it does sound like a massive commitment. And I think you'll see if people aren't picking up on it because it's too much of a commitment, you'll see that slide, you'll see it kind of meet where people are actually willing to commit in terms of time-wise. It does seem like a lot at the moment. From my understanding, you could qualify by your league position as well. Is that still the case? Or
something like that, yeah. But the more you play, the more likely you are to move up the ranks, which makes perfect sense.
You'd think so, but I think my league position and my kind of flitting between 4, 5 and 6 probably proves that the amount you play doesn't actually totally indicate how quickly you move up the league structure. I think it is a lot of hours, but if people aren't actually qualifying and getting into it, then I'm sure it'll be addressed. It's one of those things that when you're making a game, you put it out, you see how the community reacts to it, and then you balance it from there. Certainly, a lot of the time, people put a lot of hours into games, particularly the early doors. So, I think we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Certainly, I'll be struggling to put together 40 games over a weekend, even after the first few weeks. It'll be hard for me to keep that kind of commitment up. And it's something I want to get involved in. I think the rewards are great. I think, the potential for you to go on from Champions to the Championship and, take your digital play into the real world. I think that's a really kind of engaging thing for to be offered. So I'm hoping, even though I know my skill level won't let me get anywhere near that, the opportunity or the thought that I could actually achieve that is very, it's a great incentive. So, I guess it's something that they'll just look at over time. And if not enough people are qualifying, you'll see those benchmarks come down and you'll see the qualification criteria broaden or become a little less challenging for people who don't commit as much time on the wet and blustery Isle of Man to playing FIFA as we do.
Fair enough. Now, can you remember approximately how many matches you played last season, just as an indicator of where you might fit into this?
I think I was down on the previous year. I was around about 400. It wasn't anything too excessive last year. I played about 50 pro clubs and played a bit of seasons, but predominantly that was online play. So I think I dropped off a bit earlier this year. I think previous FIFAs I've stuck it through to the right through to the end, but this year my interest waned a little earlier than previous iterations. Right. So where were you?
You played things other than just Ultimate Team, right? Whereas I just play Ultimate Team. So
I do play other games, and I have a pretty bad habit when it comes to playing the Division, and that's soaked up a fair amount of my time this year, as has there's a long list of things that distract me. I like to flit around probably a bit more than you do.
Okay, a bit of a magpie. when it comes to.
So
games.
come on, Matt. How many games have you got through this
Well,
year?
I haven't played as many last year as I have done in previous. I think I played about 1,100, and I completely switched off after Chemgate. Just lost interest in that little break where they were trying to figure things out and just moved on to doing other things. So I would probably play close to 1,500 in previous seasons. But as I say, I only play Ultimate Team. I don't play divisions. I don't play exhibition matches or career mode or anything like that. So all of my FIFA play is purely through Ultimate Team only. So I think it probably suits someone like me to be playing the weekend league and FUT Champions, etc., and try and see where I fall amongst the ranks there. And I'll have a good stab at it. I think the thing with me, though, it kind of goes counterintuitive to what I like to do in Ultimate Team, which is experiment. I like making funny teams, novelty teams. Whereas if you want to be good at something like FUT Champions in the weekend league, you're going to have to find out what your best squad is really quickly and stick to it and not faff around with all Algerian teams and stuff like that. Or, I'm wearing a Fenerbahce top. I made a Turkish team at the start of FUT 16. It was great, but I don't think it would do well in this kind of format. So it might have an effect to some degree on how I play Ultimate Team this year, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But I think the amount of games you need to play is fine, because you don't have to play 40 games a weekend. You can play less and you still might do very well, but it's offering you up to 40 games to assess your quality.
I'm not sure if I want to have my quality assessed too much.
It's funny. Do you think your ability is fluctuated over the years in Ultimate Team? Because when it was a new thing back in 9, I think it was, or 10, I was ridiculously good at Ultimate Team. I say so myself. My win ratio was incredible. Even with a silver team, I was smashing elite gold teams. And in the last 2 or 3 years, whether it's anything to do with Ken or whatever, I don't know. But I felt my performance was greatly hindered, put it that way. And I was much closer to, let's say, a 2-to-1 win ratio than a much better one, put it that way. So you think your sort of win-loss has changed over the years?
I've always been pretty average, if I'm honest. I am a pure recreational player. Don't get me wrong, I've broken a few controllers, I've thrown a few tantrums, but I play it because I have fun and get pissed off in equal measure. But I think probably the average skill level has increased. I think people are more focused on playing Ultimate Team. It's become a much bigger part of the game over the years. Initially, it was something that you did on the side when you weren't playing career mode or you weren't playing, head-to-head against your friends. But now it's very much the focal point of FIFA. I think that's why this year's FIFA is so interesting, because you do have different elements challenging FIFA Ultimate Team. So it'll be interesting to see whether that has the same impact, whether people are slightly more casual with FIFA, or, as you say, because of the push to really validate your quality over a fairly sizable number of games. You see people very focused, very professional in their play. And I've got to say, I really enjoy, every once in a while, you'll come up against someone that just wants to play good football and just wants to have a laugh. And it's not all about high pressure. It's not all about, trying to just get the ball in the net. It's about, showing some skill and showing a bit of flair. And those are the games I enjoy, win, lose or draw. I probably enjoy those more than when I come up against someone that I'm not competitive with. So say I'm coming up against someone who's got a bronze team, isn't particularly good, and I go in there and smash it. I probably don't enjoy that as much as a really tight game where both of you are trying to play football rather than exploit the game's kind of strengths and weaknesses. So we'll see. Hopefully not. Hopefully you'll see that the league structure and the ranking system will mean that the right players are getting paired with the right kind of players. Certainly this year, during Chemgate, which you talked about, there was a moment where a lot of people were just relegating themselves down the divisions and
reverse boosting, or however you want to refer to it.
So you actually felt this drop of very, very good players coming down to my fairly average level, which was slightly frustrating. But no, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I'm really hopeful about this year's FIFA. It feels really considered. The gameplay feels considered. It feels like it rewards people with different types of gameplay styles, whether you're focused on pace. I think skilling feels slightly more difficult. I wouldn't say it feels less overpowered. It just feels that you have to be much more considered when you're going to put a skill move in and what the impact of that's going to be. But yeah, from what I've played so far, I'm genuinely excited and disappointed to be on holiday when FIFA comes out.
I'm with you. I appreciate the optimism. I'm probably as excited about this FIFA launch as any I can remember, to be honest. Like 15 and 16 with it, whatever. This one, they're ticking all the boxes, they're saying all the right things. I like all the new additions. So until they fuck up, I'm gonna be with them all the way and hope it goes as well as we all hope it does. So I think one thing that our listeners are going to be really interested in, and one of the reasons why they tune into our show, is getting started for the new season. Have you got any particular projects in mind for FUT 17? How are you going to start off?
I'm going to try and avoid the obvious and not build a BPL team. I kind of, I'm going to see.
Fall into that trap, though, isn't it?
Well, it's what you know, and as I say, this year it does feel like players' attributes are really carried through into their strengths and weaknesses when it comes to playing the game. So it's much easier when it's division and teams that the players' strengths and weaknesses more than others. But I'd like to have a go at a BPL team. It's going to be interesting to see whether people are actually going to field bronze and silver teams this year. With the focus on kind of qualification and achieving your best over a fairly considered amount of games. It's going to be, you may be right. It may be a more serious FIFA than previous FIFAs, but I'm hopeful that there's still space for me to try and put an AFC Wimbledon team together. Try and put together a lower level under 21 bronze English team and see how I get on with that. But yeah, I'm just going to try and avoid the obvious pitfalls of rushing to buy Alexis Sanchez and Ozil and Koscielny and build out an Arsenal team and then get stuck with that for the year. I mean, as you said, you really enjoy building novelty teams. I do, but because I don't play as much as you, when I do play, it tends to be my first team that comes out of the locker rather than something that I play more for fun.
Gotcha. Well, that makes perfect sense. I think one thing that I'm still on the fence about is because we don't have access to the full database yet, so I don't know where the novelty bargains lie just yet. So what's going to be my weird experiment for the beginning of FUT 17? I just don't know. Normally I would default to something like Turkey.
Yeah.
They're cheap and no one uses them, so it's nice to use something a little bit original.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of good players who've left Turkey this summer, like Nani, for instance. Obvious go-to players have disappeared. So I need to have a good look at these databases once they are released and decide what I'm going to do from there. But if let's say we're bereft of inspiration and we default to the BPL for a starter squad, I tend to go for ones that are going to physically do the job.
Yeah.
So midfielders with pace and power. Like last season, you had, let's say, Musa Sissoko, Fernandinho, weren't massive amount of coins, and they're the kind of players that you can keep in your squad, whether in the first team or on the bench for impact substitutions all the way through the season. So that's the kind of thing I would probably lean towards in the beginning. But for those of our listeners who are looking forward to me coming up with some crazy league team, no doubt I'll do that. I just haven't decided which one it's going to be just yet. So more than likely Turkey, but you never know. Maybe J-League. God knows.
Yeah, why not? I mean, nice not to know though, isn't it? It's going to be a nice experience not to go into the season having a kind of clear-cut plan on what you want to achieve or where your focus is going to lie. I mean, there's an obvious OP Russian league team out there somewhere, which I'm sure I came up against quite a few of those. And I know you said you didn't see too many Turkish teams, but there were so many great players in that league last season. You could put it together for buttons and just have it as your fitness squad. And
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. We had a 10K Turkish team with a few Portuguese in there for a hybrid to link up to people like Nani and whatnot, and it worked great. And it was a 10K fitness team, for lack of a better word. It's your backup, not your main thing by any stretch of the imagination. You're not going to win D1 with a Turkish team.
I'm certainly not going to win D1 with the Turkish team, so that does go without saying.
Okay, so we don't know what we're going to do necessarily off the bat for our initial project, but what's your kind of strategy in regards to the pre-release of the web app? What do you spend your time doing in that?
Right now, pressing F5. Later on, I'll try and pick up a few bargains. But as I say, I don't really know where I'm going to go with the game this year. I'm absolutely looking forward to it, but I'm not sure I'm going to be as focused early doors. Well, I can't be. I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be going through that massive first weekend of pack openings and trying to get up the divisions quickly and all the rest of it. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm kind of looking forward to letting the hype get out of the way by a couple of weeks whilst I'm out of the country, and then coming back and seeing where everyone else has discarded their players to, if they're discarding players this year, because obviously you've got the squad building challenges, and I'm interested to see what impact that has on the market and has on people actually holding on to players rather than transferring them or just quick selling them for coins. So should be pretty interesting, really.
I think that's going to be massive, and I still think that's going to create opportunity for people trading. Speculators will be buying certain players up in bulk and anticipation that they'll end up in a squad building challenge somewhere down the line, which will have a very interesting impact on the market. And we may find that the players who are least popular become the most rare all of a sudden, in between discarding and people keeping them in their club in anticipation of challenges. There's not going to be so many of them on the market.
No, it's going to be really interesting, actually. It's something we've seen year after year when you have the St. Patrick's Day Cup. So people will hold on to their Irish players for that, and then there will be people speculating on the market and trying to make the most out of a quick buck on Shane Long. But I'm genuinely interested to see how that works out. I mean, certainly in the beta, rather than just getting rid of the players that I was getting in the free packs EA were giving you over that process, I was holding on to them and seeing what I could make in terms of squad building challenges. So I think for me, it will probably lead me to being a little less active in the marketplace. So we'll wait and see.
Okay, good stuff. Now, here's a silly question, because I know you're a big Arsenal fan and I'm wearing a Fenerbahce kit, but whose kits do you tend to default to in Ultimate Team, or have you seen any new kits for this year that you think, yes, I'm definitely going to use that in my club?
I mean, that was a really interesting thing about the beta, is the fact that I didn't come across any of the big kits. I don't know if they didn't release them, but they certainly didn't seem to be there. So you're playing with lots of kind of bronze kits, and it was really nice. Normally I am that sad that I'll have Arsenal home and away. And when I'm playing career mode, I'll normally be, AFC Wimbledon or something like that. So nice to support football managers, see a bit of their branding in FIFA. I'll probably default back to them. I grew up in Wimbledon, so growing up, Wimbledon were my team before they up sticks and ran off to Milton Keynes. So I've still got a lot of kind of love for AFC, watching them climb the divisions and doing what they're doing. I think it is lovely to see a community club grow from nothing and establish itself. So I'll probably be playing with a bit of AFC Wimbledon. I'm not sure what this strip's like this year. Hopefully it's
blue and yellow.
Yeah.
With Football Manager on it. Good.
Happy days.
Do a bit of in-game advertising. That never hurt anybody.
Yeah, I'm sure Miles Jacobson would be happy about that.
Did you ever have much of contact with them when you worked at IDOS?
I was working on Champman when the team left IDOS and moved over to work on Football Manager. So it was an interesting period of time, and certainly some people have come out of that and moved on to other football games. So it was really interesting, really good bunch of guys, and certainly Miles, who's one of the big guys over there, is a lovely bloke and so passionate about what he does. These days it has to be a very distinct choice for me. Am I going to play FIFA Ultimate Team, or am I going to play Football Manager? Yeah. I'm probably going to play Football Manager on mobile. Let's be honest. I haven't got the time to put into that. I haven't even got the time to put into Ultimate Team. So they're both great games, but yeah, it's it was an interesting period watching a development team and a brand split off. It's not something I've ever experienced since.
It was a very strange situation. We won't go too much into that, but it was a very weird thing, particularly from a game's point of view. There was so much confusion.
Yeah.
But I used to play Championship Manager and Football Manager avidly. And then when Ultimate Team came along, it completely replaced the need for me to play it. I got the game where I can play the football matches and I can still sort of do the management side in terms of trading and stuff with an Ultimate Team. So I went from playing it God knows how many hours a week, like every other addict who's played Football Manager and Champ, to literally zero by about FM12. I was gone, which is a bit of a shame because it's been a very key part of my gaming life, and now it's completely gone.
I think for a number of years it formulated a lot of my knowledge about football. It's kind of, I was learning about the real world through the digital world, and that was pretty nice. And I kind of gained
Saviola before you went to Barcelona and all that kind of stuff. And it teaches you a lot about football geographically. Leagues you wouldn't ever get to see on TV. We actually knew a lot about the players, and now we do for Ultimate Team. But back then, that was our football and education, for lack of a better word. Absolutely,
it's probably gave me more of a depth of interest and knowledge into football than watching football. It sounds terrible, but it is probably true.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I've got a funny anecdote about the Sports Interactive team. I was working at Odeon Cinemas many years ago. That was my first company that I worked for straight out of high school.
Okay.
And I started working on their internet team. So I was responsible for a bit of content management on their website and stuff. And I got an email from someone at Sports Interactive, and for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the top guys, but not Miles. So I'm trying to think who it could be, but I've forgotten. But anyway, he was attending or promoting the new Football Manager game. It's a special conference, like Scotland Video Game Conference or something like that. They were using the Odeon Cinema in Edinburgh.
Okay.
They're like, can you put some of these images onto your website to promote the events? I'm like, yeah, sure. So he sends me some stock images of the new Football Manager, some branding stuff. So I put it on the site so people in the area know what's going on. And he was very grateful for my over-enthusiastic cooperation because I made it quite clear I was a fan of the game. And he sent me a free copy a week before it came out. So I was well chuffed with that.
That's awesome. See,
we're all good guys.
No, it's as I say, people who work on these games are so passionate about them. When they meet people who kind of share that passion and love, it's kind of a vindication of all of the hours and effort that they put in. So you get a lot of, you take a lot from the people who love your game as much as you do, because you live in and breathe it for so many hours of the day. You probably see the people you work with more than you see your friends, you see your family, your loved ones, particularly in the kind of moment up to launch. So it's lovely when you meet people who share that passion. It kind of really vindicates all the hours that you do put in.
Sure. Like I said to you before, I'm really pleased to hear from your perspective of the amount of enthusiasm and passion in the industry. I think we've all been guilty of being overly critical of EA and FIFA, the FIFA series over the years, and they're very quick to jump on the bandwagon with vitriol when things go wrong. But we still play the game year in, year out, so they must be doing something very, very well to keep us entertained in that respect. So that's great. One thing I forgot to ask you about in regards to your experience of the beta and playing the demo is, what are your thoughts on the journey? Because this is the big change for FIFA 17, and some people have referred to it as Grand Theft FIFA or Marcus Rashford mode. So what are your thoughts on it? Because it is different, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you're in this kind of interactive journey, and I really enjoyed it. I'll definitely play it. It'll be part of my kind of gameplay experience. Will I go back and play it? I don't know. I don't know what if there is crossover, if I could take my player out of the journey and put him into FIFA Ultimate Team, I'd be all over that all day long. But yeah, it's really, it's a great way to get people into playing FIFA. It's kind of the perfect onboarding into the game. It takes you in, it grows you through the progression. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to play a bit more of it. I kind of played it in the beta and you had a very limited experience, but it was very Moorish. I definitely wanted to kind of take my guy, get him in a position to score some good goals, and the fact that you could play around with their reactions to questions in interviews and portray a certain range of characteristics, I think could be quite good fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing more than that. As I say, very limited exposure to that for me in the beta. I spent most of the time playing Ultimate Team and getting a beating. Yeah, it's good fun.
Right, so what do you reckon your style's going to be in terms of how you handle the character? You're going to be more Nicolas Anelka or more Thierry Henry?
Well, who knows? I mean, it depends what time of night it is, to be honest with you. No comment on that. Yeah, how many coffees I've had in that evening. But yeah, I think I'll probably play it both ways. It's kind of a similar system to Mass Effect, where I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not the way you behave has a direct impact on your progression, the amount of time you get in the first team, your relationship with your manager, the relationship with other players. So that kind of, I suppose, gameplay elements really interest me. So, but yeah, I'll probably be really petulant, or I'll start off trying to be really good and nice, and then I'll get bored at some point and just be, a bit dickish. So it'd be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it's portrayed over stuff like Twitch, when you've got these bombastic personalities on Twitch who will just like, do the stupidest things and make the weirdest choices every single time and get into trouble. But I'm quite looking forward to having my starlet go through the Stoke Academy and be an absolute dickhead. See how he turns out. It should be pretty funny.
Who are you gonna base your kind of characters or kind of personality on? Have you got someone in mind to style him around?
Probably Joey Barton. He thinks he's clever, but he's an absolute fucking knob.
He's got 3 weeks holiday right now, so
he might be playing the journey.
Absolutely,
closest he gets to a pitch for a while. So good on. It's funny how he's done all this just as he's launching a new book as well. So
I hadn't noticed that, but then I can't really read, so
yeah,
he's kind of
out in 2 days, and how there are these things. There's going to be loads of revelations and stuff he's done in the past. So I'm sure it's all good publicity for the Barton autobiography, but get playing the journey and let's see how your dickheadish antics actually go down, and that'll be pretty good to see.
Be nice to see how that plays out, if you can actually whether you end up as Joey Barton or whether you end up as Eric Cantona.
There's a fine line to tread between madness and genius, and hopefully they portray that quite well in the journey. That would be good.
Yeah, it should be good fun to play.
Yeah. Okay, so just sort of down to the last couple of things that we do per episode here. Now, one thing that when we switched over from the Futhead podcast to FUTStock, people were instantly saying, please keep doing novelty players of the week. We really like that. And it's talking about players that people often don't use, and we don't have access to the database yet. So we're taking a bit of a stab in the dark here. Now, I don't know if you saw, there was some news this week, James. There was a site that came to Privality called WeFut.com.
No, I haven't.
Which apparently had access to a database. Now, it already appears to be ever so slightly out of date because some of their figures differ from like the top 50 players that EA have released in their promos and stuff. But it's worth having a poke around just to get a rough idea of where certain players are going to end up being. And based off that, this week's novelty player of the week purely is a discard starter player who's going to do very well in a BPL team. We're going to go for Stokes Gielli Mbula because he's basically going to be like the cheap baby Patrick Vieira. Very fast, good physicals, good all-rounder, and I can't imagine he'll sell for more than like 400 coins. So I think he'll be an excellent starting point. for most people. And he is a really good player in real life. We paid 16 million for him, for fuck's sake, so he should be all right.
And wasn't he benched last weekend? So
yeah, I think the problem with him is that he likes to get forward a lot, and he's been played as a defensive midfielder, so we're getting caught out of position, and we're shipping goals left, right, and centre. So Stoke look in a lot of trouble at the minute, and we need a bit more discipline in the midfield. So he sat one out, but I'm sure he'll be back, and I reckon he'll have a good season, and I think he'll be good as a cheap beast in Ultimate Team. So when the database gets onto Foothead, do check him out and let us know how you get on with him.
I actually packed him in the beta. He was one of the first players I got out. So I love playing with him. Crazy legs, really good, power.
Crazy legs.
He does. He's got some. He's got some long legs in that game, and he was shoring up my midfield during that experience. So no, he's. I quite happily play with him. Him, Fernandinho kind of fulfill that nice central midfield role where they can break up play.
Midfielder,
yeah. So you got to have one in your starting lineup, but I'd be quite happy to start off with him in midfield. So
okay, that's really good to hear. I'm glad that you've affirmed my choice.
Yeah,
very handy. So that leads us on to novelty inform of the week.
Ooh.
Difficult again because the list of the first team of the week for FIFA 17 doesn't come out until tomorrow. So we're having to anticipate who's likely to get into the team. And I think based off last weekend's Premier League fixtures, the standout performance was Nacer Chadli. I think he got 2 goals and an assist.
Yep.
And he's more likely going to be a cam than his traditional wide player where everyone just left him alone because he only got mid-70s pace. But as a cam with good shooting and long range, he's going to be excellent. Because he's a West Brom player, I can't see him being more than about 20, 30k once the market sort of settles down. So I think he would be a good choice. If I'm right in thinking he is right-footed, but he can ping them in from range. So that always goes down well for a cam, at least the way I play. Is anyone sort of in the Premier League this season who sort of impressed you, James, who you think might make a good inform either now or later on in the season?
I kind of said this to you earlier. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Iheanacho progresses. He just, even playing him in the demo with Man City, he's just a beast. He's always in the right place and he's just banging them in. He kind of really pushes past his stats. So I hadn't really thought of a novelty inform for this for week 1, but I mean there are plenty that are going to be very, very expensive. So Chadley would be a good one. Good starting point, and very, very solid cam, as you say. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a few other position changes, whether Sanchez ends up picking one up at striker, and where oh god, I've forgotten his name now. That's terrible. Where Sterling ends up being put on in terms of position, whether he's a cam, whether he's a right mid, whether he's a left mid. So there's going to be some interesting kind of positional changes this year, and certainly just playing the game, it feels like your wingers have a lot more to contribute this year than they did last year. I felt that kind of my wide players were relatively underused last year, whereas this time around I'm hopeful that actually crossing a ball into the box delivers something every once in a while. As I say, it does feel a lot more considered. It feels like you can lay the ball off from kind of an aerial pass better than you have been able to in previous years. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so I think that is the end of the show. James, thank you ever so much for joining us.
No, pleasure.
Super busy and you're about to go on holiday, so I'm really grateful for you taking time out to come to the show. And if you're enjoying 17, as I'm sure you will do, I hope you'll come back on and have a chat with us a bit later in the season.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have a novelty inform by then for you. So hopefully it's Jack Wilshere at Bournemouth, but I live in Hay. He nearly got 90 minutes in this weekend, so I was pretty chuffed with that. But no, thanks for your time, I really enjoyed it.
Nice one, mate. Thanks ever so much.
Cheers.
So guys, until next week, make sure you don't have nightmares. Matt Aguilera will be back with us next week, and we're looking forward to the launch of FIFA 17. We'll be doing a show either on launch night or the day after, so stay tuned to that one. So until next time, bye-bye.
See ya.